The Galactic Peace Summit had finally returned to Earth after 200 years. And for the first time, the mighty Zelthari Dominion had accepted the invitation. The United Nations building in Geneva was a strange place that day. Soldiers stood by every door. Scientists ran down the halls with tablets and translator devices. Diplomats wore their best suits, some sweating nervously. But the attention of the entire planet was focused on one being, Princess Virelia of the Zelthari. She was tall and cold like a statue, with smooth emerald-green scales that shimmered like jewels under the lights. Her golden armor reflected flashes of camera drones hovering in the air. Her eyes were like burning coals, narrow and intense. She didn't smile. Zelthari royalty never smiled. When she entered the assembly hall, everyone stopped talking. Humans stood. Some bowed. Others whispered behind hands, "She looks like a dragon." No, more like a snake. She's beautiful, in a terrifying way. Princess Virelia ignored them all. She had not come to be praised by primitive species. She had come to study them, to see if these humans were really worth the dominions. Time she sat on the High Council seat, built just for her wider than normal, tall enough to match her height with room for her tail. Her two royal guards stood like statues beside her, holding electrospears. The summit began. Speeches were made, treaties were signed. But it was the xenobiology exchange that caused everything to go wrong. The presentation, Dr. Marcos Ibarra, lead xenobiologist of Earth, stepped onto the stage. He was a short, cheerful man in his 50s, with a round belly and kind eyes. He had been chosen to explain human biology to the alien guests. "Honored delegates," he began. "Today I will share with you the wonders of human reproduction." At that, Princess Virelia narrowed her eyes. Reproduction? She sat up straighter. The screen behind Dr. Ibarra showed images. Pregnant women, ultrasound scans, babies being held by crying parents. The humans in the room smiled. Some looked emotional, but Princess Virelia's tail curled tightly around her chair. "As you can see," Dr. Ibarra said, "human reproduction is internal. The female carries the developing life form for 9 months. The birth process is painful, sometimes dangerous. Yet it is considered a miracle and often a joyful experience." He pressed a button. A video played. A human woman was giving birth, holding someone's hand, screaming and crying, but smiling at the end when the baby was placed on her chest. Princess Virelia's jaw dropped open. She ruptured. Virelia hissed to her guard, "She bleeds to make another." Her voice echoed through the room. Some delegates turned toward her in surprise. Dr. Ibarra blinked. "Yes, the birthing process can be intense. But mothers willingly go through it. Willingly." Stood, pointing a clawed finger at him. "You expect me to believe your species chooses to tear their own flesh for the sake of reproduction?" "Well, yes," Ibarra said, still calm. "Because of love, family, it's lies," she shouted. "This is propaganda. No intelligent species would design such madness." Dr. Ibarra tried to speak, but Virelia waved him off and stormed out of the room, her tail dragging across the floor behind her like a tonlert. Through the meltdown in her private quarters aboard her orbiting vessel, the Royal Fang, Virelia paced back and forth. She turned to her science advisor. "Tell me that truth. Did your scans detect any mind-altering toxins in the atmosphere?" "No, Princess. The air is safe." "Then they must be lying," she growled. "It is impossible that a species so fragile, so emotional, has reached space travel. And now they claim they can survive childbirth without cloning." Her advisor blinked. "They seem proud of it, Princess." "That's the worst part," she snapped. "Their biology is chaos, yet they smile through it." She threw a datapad across the room. "I will not be fooled. I will see the truth. With my own eyes. Mission: infiltrate Earth against her advisor's warnings." Princess Virelia disguised herself in a specially designed exosuit that looked roughly human. It wasn't perfect. Her voice was too deep, and her movement a little stiff. But it would work. she and two guards, also disguised, traveled by a diplomatic shuttle back to the surface. Their first stop, a maternity ward in a hospital in Paris. Virilia watched, horrified, as human nurses comforted a pregnant woman through labor. She expected screaming and chaos. There was pain, yes, but also peace. The father was crying. The mother was smiling through tears. "Why doesn't she run?" Virilia whispered. "She's." Choosing this, her guard muttered, "Next stop, a kindergarten in rural Canada." Small humans, children ran around, shouting, laughing, sticking drawings on the walls. They looked fragile, noisy, and uncoordinated, but their teachers hugged them when they fell. Other kids shared toys. Some even tried to comfort a crying boy. "No control," Virilia muttered. "They have no control over their spawn, and still, they care." Final stop, a baby shower in Tokyo. A group of women gave gifts to another who was 7 months pregnant. They laughed, played games, and talked about cravings and diapers. "They celebrate the pain before it even begins," Virilia said, shaking her head. "These mammals are insane." Confrontation, the moment Virilia returned to her ship. She found Dr. Ibarra waiting for her via holocall. "You've been busy, Princess," he said with a smile. 3 hospitals, 2 schools, and a party." "You are dangerous, Doctor," she said coldly. "Not because of weapons, but because your people are willing to die for love." He nodded. "Yes, that's what makes us strong." "I don't believe in that," she said. "You don't have to," Ibarra replied. "But you should respect it." There was a long silence. "I saw a child today," Virilia said at last. "He fell and scraped his knee. It was nothing. But his parent ran faster than I thought humans could move, just to comfort him." "That's parenthood," Ibarra said softly. Virilia didn't answer. To be continued. Dotbot back aboard her ship. Princess Virilia sat in silence. Her guards said nothing. The stars outside the window seemed too quiet. She had come to Earth to prove the humans were liars. Their biology was weak and foolish, but what she found shook her to the core. A species that survives pain through love, that chooses sacrifice, not for glory, but for each other. "They are not lies," she whispered to herself. "They are possible truths." And that scared her more than any weapon. Princess Virilia sat alone in the viewing chamber of her ship. The Royal Fang, staring out at the blue and white planet below. Earth strange. Fragile, emotional Earth. Ever since her secret visit to the human maternity ward, she had not spoken much. Her guards and advisors noticed it, but no one dared to interrupt her silence. She was thinking, observing, calculating. For the first time in her royal life, she was confused. The humans didn't lie about their reproduction. They really did suffer. They bled, they cried, they screamed, and still they loved. Still they smiled. It didn't make sense. It shouldn't make sense. That night, she called her 2 most trusted guards, Zarnok and Kareen. "We are returning to the surface," she said. "But this time, not as visitors. We go as watchers." The plan they traveled in a small, black, diplomatic Padun detectable by human satellites and radar. Virilia wore her exosuit again, but this time she made adjustments. Her voice sounded more human. Her skin was given a synthetic tone, soft beige instead of shimmering green. Her eyes were hidden behind dark glasses. She looked almost normal. Almost her guards, too, disguised themselves as human tourists. The goal: observe human parenting and bonding in its most natural, filtered forms. If she was going to believe these strange Earth creatures, she needed more proof. Day 1, the single. Father, their first visit was to a small town in South America. Virilia had found a file on a human male named Luis. Delgado, a single father, raising 2 children after the death of his wife. They observed from a distance. Using drones and cloaked cameras, Luis worked all day as a mechanic. At night, he cooked dinner, helped his daughter with homework, and tucked his baby son into bed with soft lullabies in Spanish. "He is not genetically perfect," Kareen whispered. "He limps. He is slow. Why would the species not replace him?" could find a new mate, Zarnak added, but he remains alone. Why, Virelia said nothing, but her tail twitched inside the exosuit. She was starting to feel something she did not understand. It was not pity, it was respect. Day 2, the orphan home next. They visited an orphanage in Kenya. Here, dozens of children of different ages played and studied together. None of them shared the same blood. Some were missing limbs. Others had scars. Yet they were laughing, drawing on walls, helping each other walk. A human woman named Sister Margaret, trickled, tired, and full of love, ran the orphanage. She is not related to them, Zarnak said. She feeds them, bathes them, teaches. Them, Kareen added, with no reward. Virelia watched as Sister Margaret picked up a crying toddler. The child was dirty and had torn clothes, but she hugged him like he was made of gold. Why? Virelia whispered. Then she turned to her guards. She does not gain strength from them, and yet she gives everything. Kareen frowned. It goes against Dominion logic. Exactly, Virelia said. They are wrong, but still they thrive. Day 3. The front lines of Lavon, the third day. Virelia made her most daring move. She ordered the ship to fly near the war-torn region of Eastern Europe where humans were fighting over territory. She had learned of a mobile medical unit that helped injured civilians, especially children. No military escort? Zarnak asked. No, Virelia said. If humans claim to protect life during chaos, I want to see it with my own eyes. The medical camp was a mess. Dirt, smoke, blood, the sounds of gunfire in the distance. But inside the tents, doctors and nurses worked around the clock. They patched wounds, whispered kind words, and even sang songs to calm scared kids. Virelia watched as a young nurse with a broken arm cradled a wounded child, ignoring her own pain. What madness is this? Zarnak growled. This is human bonding, Virelia said slowly. It is not logic, it is not order, it is something else. Dr. Ibarra returns back aboard the Royal Fang. Virelia found a new message waiting. It was from Dr. Marcos Ibarra, the same human she had insulted during the summit. The message was short. I see you've been doing some field work, Princess. Perhaps now you understand that our greatest strength is not technology or numbers, but connection. Virelia stared at the message for a long time. Then she called for a meeting with her science council. The report inside the science chamber, holograms of her journey lit the room. Images of mothers, our fathers, orphaned children, sacrifice, and joy. These are not fabrications, Virelia said to the gathered scholars. I have seen the truth. Human reproduction is painful. Yet chosen, their children are weak, yet protected. Her chief advisor looked worried. Your Highness, if what you say is true, then humans are a dangerous variable. They are not driven by logic or efficiency. They risk everything for what? They feel exactly, Virelia said. So it makes them powerful. Or unstable, another scientist added. Or both. She replied. A silence filled the room. One scholar asked, What do you recommend? Virelia took a deep breath. Continued the study. Quietly. Do not provoke them. But understand this. They are not like us. They do not survive by strength. They survive by bond, by love. That word felt strange on her tongue, but she said it again. Love. Backlash from the Dominion the next day. A message arrived from the Zelthari High Council. They had seen leaked footage from the princess's missions. Some political rival had shared images of her bowing her head before a human child. The council was furious. You are being manipulated by an inferior species, the message read. You dishonor the Dominion by showing weakness. Return at once and explain your actions. Virelia crushed the tablet in her hand. This is not weakness. She said, This is truth. Zarnak looked nervous. You will remove your command if you do not obey. Then let them try, she snapped. I will not lie to protect comfort. She looked out the window again, toward Earth. The humans still did not know how close they were to becoming a galactic threat. It's not because of weapons or armies, but because they had something most species did not: an unstoppable reason to fight, to build, to survive. Each other. A quiet moment that night. Virelia stood on the Earth's surface once again, this time in a quiet village. A little girl with black braids and a toothless smile ran up to her, offering a small toy. Virelia blinked. "What is this?" The girl giggled. "For you? Because you look lonely." Virelia slowly took the toy. It was soft, handmade, stitched with love. She knelt and touched the girl's hair. "I am not lonely," she said. "I am learning." The girl hugged her and ran off. Virelia didn't stop her for a long time. She stood in the moonlight, holding the toy tightly in her hands. To be continued. That the princess had come to Earth to uncover lies, but what she found instead were truths raw, painful, and beautiful, and deep inside her royal heart. Something began to grow. Not fear, not power, but understanding. The Zelthari ship, the Royal Fang, floated above Earth's orbit like a silent predator in the stars. Inside, Princess Virelia stood in her private chamber. Her claws tapping the glass of the viewing window, Earth still turned quietly below her. It was beautiful, yes, but strange. A planet filled with life, music, and emotion. A place where people died for family and cried for love. A world where pain was embraced instead of erased. She had come here to disprove their madness. But now, she couldn't stop thinking about it. The girl who gave her a toy. The orphan children with no blood. Parents but full hearts. The broken nurse holding a child in war. The father with no wife but endless patience. These weren't lies. These were terrifying truths. And Virelia wasn't sure she could ever unsee them. The council's orders, her advisor, Grand Vizier Trexa, appeared in the chamber doorway with sharp steps and a stiff tail. His face was cold, lips tight. "Princess," he said, "the High Council demands your immediate return to the throne cluster. They believe your attachment to Earth is a threat." Virelia turned slowly. They fear. What they do not understand? They fear you have gone soft, Trexa snapped. Zarnak and Kareen. Her loyal guards stood silently nearby, watching the tension rise. Trexa continued. The Dominion has lived by strength, logic, and control for 10,000 years.
Ow.
Humans, they are emotional, chaotic, unstable, and yet they survive, Virelia said sharply. They reproduce through pain. They protect with weakness. And they love with no reason. And still, they endure. Trexa hissed. "We do not need their weakness in our bloodlines. But perhaps we need their will," Virelia whispered. "Enough," Trexa barked. "If you do not return and renounce this emotional experiment, the throne may pass to another. The council has already started speaking to your cousin." That cut deeper than she expected. Her cousin, Prince Reketh, was cruel, power-hungry, and loyal to no one. If he took the throne, the Dominion would declare humans a threat and move to conquer Earth. "Do you understand what is at stake, Virelia?" Trexa said, voice low. "Your crown, your future." Virelia looked down at her clawed hands, then back at Earth. "I understand," she said. "Perfectly." The choice late that night, Virelia sat in her meditation chamber, staring at the toy the little girl had given her. It was small. It's just a cloth doll with one button eye and a crooked smile, but it felt heavier than gold in her hands. She had to choose: return home and lie to save her title, or stay and tell the truth and lose everything. Her heart had never been her guide. She had been trained in logic, battle, control, but the humans had taught her something else: to protect something. Because you love it, not because it is useful. She stood slowly, placed the toy in a silver case, and sealed it. "I will not abandon truth," she said quietly, breaking protocol the next day. Virelia sent a private message to Earth's United Nations. "I request asylum. I wish to live among your people, to learn and to understand more deeply. This is no longer a mission. It is a vow. The response came faster than expected, from Dr. Marcos Ibarra himself. We accept your request, Princess, but I must warn you, living, as one of us is not easy. We break, feel too much. We lose often, but we get up again. It's what we do. Her heart tightened at his words. She wasn't sure she was ready, but she knew she had to try. Exile begins Virelia. Stepped down from her throne on the royal fang. Her crown was placed in a stasis vault. Her ceremonial armor locked away. She arrived on Earth, not as royalty, but as a student, a learner. Her first home was in a small countryside town in Scotland. Quiet, peaceful, no grand palaces, no servants, just neighbors who brought bread, children who asked too many questions, old men who offered tea without asking who you were. She was assigned to stay with a human woman named Clara Wells, a retired teacher and grandmother of 4. Clara was soft and round, with eyes that had seen much and judged little. She gave Virelia a room with a bed and blankets and a stuffed bear. You don't have to be anything here, love, Clara said kindly. Just be. Learning humanity, Virelia learned slowly. She learned how to make tea, how to fold clothes, how to clean dishes and walk in the rain without a shield. She learned how humans argued during dinner but still said, I love you. Before bed, she learned that grief did not make them weaker, but deeper. She learned that holding a crying child, without solving anything, was sometimes enough. And most of all, she learned that love was not just a word, it was a choice. Every single day, backlash from home, the Dominion did not take her exile quietly. They declared her a traitor, a royal failure. Prince Rekith was crowned in her place and began building a fleet supposedly for protection. But Virelia knew better. She received threatening messages, warnings, insults, but she also received secret letters from Zelthari, scientists who had read her reports and believed her, young officers who had watched her speech and felt hope. A movement was beginning, and Earth had become the symbol. The turning point. One rainy night, Clara was taken to the hospital. A sudden illness. Heart failure. Virelia sat beside her in silence, holding her fragile hand. Don't cry, love, Clara said weakly. This is part of the cycle. But it hurts, Virelia whispered. To lose. Clara smiled. Of course it does. That's how you know it mattered. Virelia didn't understand, but she stayed all night. When Clara passed quietly in her sleep, Virelia wept for the first time in her life. Not in silence, not in shame, but openly with love. To be continued. Princess Virelia had once ruled 1,000 systems. Now she swept floors in a quiet Earth house and watched over a cat named Marmalade. But she had found something rarer than power. She had found a new way to live, not as a ruler, but as one of them. And back in the stars, others were watching, and beginning to question their own truths. Months passed. The Earth's seasons changed. Winter snow melted into spring warmth. Trees bloomed again. Life continued, but for Princess Virelia, now simply called Vera by her human neighbors, everything had changed forever. She was no longer a royal alien watching from above. She was now living among the humans she once doubted, eating with them, walking beside them, laughing, crying, helping, and learning like one of them. And most of all, she was becoming something no one from her empire had ever dared become. Human in heart. The visit one morning while she fed the birds outside Clara's old house, a familiar voice called out, "You're blending in well." She turned fast. Her claws clicked against the stones. Standing near the garden gate was Dr. Marcos Ibarra, wearing a long coat and a tired smile. "Dr. Ibarra," she said, stepping closer. "You came in person." "Had to," he replied. "You've stirred up the galaxy." She raised a brow. "How bad?" "Worse and better than you think," he said, handing her a data chip. "Some want you punished, others want you studied, but most want to hear more." She looked down at the chip. "What is it?" "Messages," he said. "From humans. From aliens. Even from a few Dominion rebels. People are watching you, Virelia. They're listening. And they're beginning to wonder." She tilted her head. Wonder what? If we've had love wrong this whole time. Secret broadcast that. Night, Virilia opened the chip. Thousands of voices, letters, video messages. Audio recordings. One was from a Zelthari child who said, I want to love like the humans do, but my teacher says that's weak. Are they wrong? Another was from a human mother who lost her child and said, thank you for believing our pain matters. Another from a Dominion scientist, I've hidden your research in our libraries. If truth is exile, I will walk with you. Virilia sat in silence as the messages played one after another. Her chest felt tight. Not with fear, but with purpose. She had started something. She had to finish it. She tapped her wristpad and opened a signal, a public broadcast. Across stars, planets, and ships. Her face appeared no crown, no armor, just her. She spoke slowly, clearly, honestly. I came to Earth to prove they were wrong. But they were right. Their strength is not in weapons or numbers. It is in love, in care, in the pain they choose to carry. We were told pain is weakness, but they turn pain into hope. We were told reproduction must be perfect, but they risk their lives to bring children into the world. And then they love them no matter what. I believe this is not foolishness. It is the strongest force in the universe. And I will protect it, even if I must stand alone. But she would not stand alone for long. Rekathu's war high above. In the dark cold of space, Prince Reketh, now self-declared Emperor of the Dominion, watched her speech with furious eyes. She dares speak love as if it is a weapon, he growled. His generals stood quiet, nervous. She poisons the minds of our youth, spreads weakness like a virus, he shouted. Then he turned to the stars. She has chosen humans over her own blood, he said. Very well, then. Earth will pay the price. He raised his claw. Begin the attack. Earth in danger? The warning came from the outer colonies. Dominion fleets had moved toward Earth's space. 10 ships. Full power. Full weapons. The United Nations called an emergency meeting. Some wanted to evacuate the princess. Others suggested surrender. But Dr. Ibarra spoke firmly. She didn't bring this war, he said. She stopped one before, and she can stop it again. Virilia stood beside him. I will not run, she said. I will not hide. Then she turned to the council. Let me speak to Reketh one last time, face to face. It's a secured channel. Was open between Earth and the lead Dominion warship. Virilia stepped into the room. Alone, no guards, no translators. On the screen, Reketh appeared tall, cold, and cruel. You look small, cousin, he sneered. Earth has made you soft. No, she said. Earth has made me strong. You abandon your species for weaklings, he hissed. I learned from them. And now I know love is not weakness, she replied. It is courage. Rekatha's eyes narrowed. Then prepare to die with them. But before he could cut the signal, another voice came through. No, it was a young Dominion pilot. Another voice followed. And another, we will not fight this war. We choose Virelia's truth. We want something more. By ship, officers began to mutiny. Crews shut down weapons. Pilots defected. Some even sent messages of peace to Earth. Reketh roared in anger. Traitors, all of you. His fleet began to fall apart, not from enemy fire. But from inside, the war had ended before a single shot was fired. The new voice of the stars days later, Virelia stood in front of a mixed crowd, humans, aliens, children, elders, soldiers, scientists. She wore no crown, just a simple earth dress and a crystal pin shaped like a heart. I once believed love was a dangerous lie, she said. But now I know love is the reason we rise again. At the crowd. At first, I tried to understand human parenting with logic. But what I found was more powerful than any theory. She smiled. It was something you can only feel when you hold a child, when you bury a friend, when you choose someone else's happiness before your own. Then she held up the toy. The girl had given her the one she kept safe all this time. This is worth more than any throne. To be continued. The Dominion did not fall. But it changed. Some still called her traitor. Others now called her teacher. But Earth was safe. The spark of her words had started a fire across stars small at first, but growing, one mind at a time. One heart at a time, and somewhere, in a quiet village, a little girl asked her mother, "Can love really save the galaxy?" And the mother smiled. It already started to. The galaxy was quieter now, not silent, no. The stars still whispered with life, but something had changed. There were fewer threats, fewer broadcasts about war, and more messages about peace. Some ships now flew with both Earth and Dominion. Flags painted side by side, and it had all started with one simple truth. Love is not weakness. Love is the seed of strength. Princess Verelian, now just Vera. Tomos had given up her crown, but she had gained something greater, eh? A place in history? A place in hearts? 1 year later in the village where she had lived with Clara, spring returned once again. Vera woke to birdsong and sunlight touching her. Room. She stretched, no longer in alien armor, but in soft earth clothes. She opened her window and breathed in the morning air. Downstairs, the smell of bread filled the air. Her new friend Una, a young human woman who'd lost her parents in war, had come to live with her after Clara passed. "You're up late," Una teased from the kitchen. "I was dreaming," Vera replied. "About what?" Vera smiled. Stars and children. The academy. Vera walked through the village to a building that hadn't existed a year ago. It was made of stone and glass. Simple, beautiful, above the door. The sign read, "The Varelia School of Life and Peace." It wasn't just a school for humans. Salthari children also came, some with claws, some with scales, some with wings. Others were from distant species no one had met before last year. Inside, we learned not only science and history, but how to feel, how to handle grief, how to hold someone who is crying, how to say, "I'm scared," and not be punished. Vera taught once a week, not as a ruler, but as a storyteller. Today was her favorite day, when the youngest class gathered to listen. The story of the Dalth. Children sat cross-legged on soft cushions. A little Zelthari girl raised her hand. "Teacher." "Vera, is it true you used to wear a crown?" Vera nodded, sitting in the circle with them. "Yes, but I gave it up." "Why?" She reached into a small wooden box beside her and pulled out a cloth doll with one button eye. "This was given to me by a human child. It had no technology, no gold, no meaning to anyone but her. And yet, she held it to her heart. It changed everything." The children stared in awe. Another child asked, "Is love really that strong?" Vera smiled gently. "Strong enough to end wars." Yes. News from the stars later that day. A visitor came from space. A shuttle landed outside. The village, no guards, no soldiers. Just one quiet man, Captain Drek, former Dominion officer who had once served under Prince Rhett. Now, he wore a simple uniform and carried a scroll. "Vera of Earth," he said with a bow. "I bring word from the new council." She stood. Calmly, "What do they wish?" He unrolled the scroll. "By vote of star systems, an agreement of many species, we ask you, will you return not as queen but as ambassador of peace and understanding, representing both Earth and Dominion?" She didn't answer right away. She looked at the sky, and the school, and the fields where children were running, laughing at last. She turned back to Captain Drek. "I will consider it," she said, "on one condition. A new throne, Vera. Return to the stars, but this time not on a warship." She traveled in a peace cruiser, painted with art made by the school children. Flowers, animals, even stars with smiley faces. She visited 10 worlds in 10 months. On one planet, she watched humans and aliens plant gardens together. On another, she hugged a soldier who said, "I was told never to feel. Now I cry, and I'm proud of it." She spoke to queens and street sweepers, scientists and singers, and everywhere she went, She told the same story, about a doll, about a choice, about how love is not perfect, but powerful. Reketh's silence. No one had seen or heard from Prince Reketh since his fleet broke apart. Rumors said he vanished into deep space. Some believed he had died. Others whispered he was still watching, but Vera had stopped fearing him, not because he was gone, but because his world no longer ruled her. She had chosen a different path. Others had followed. Even his loyalists now questioned the old ways. Homecoming after nearly 2 years, Vera returned to Earth. The village was waiting. Yuna ran to her first and hugged her tightly. "You're thinner," Yuna said. "Did you forget to eat again on those fancy space planets?" Vera laughed. "I was fed well, but nothing tastes like your bread." The school was bigger now. A new building was under construction, one for parents who had lost their children. And children who had lost their parents, a place for healing. Vera stood before the students that evening, under open sky. "I have traveled far," she told them, "and I have seen wonders. But nothing compares to what we are building here together." One final message later that night. She recorded one last message. This one wasn't for councils or empires. It was for the future, to anyone listening long after I am gone. "I was born in a world without hugs, without tears, without lullabies. I was trained to see pain as error and love as danger. I learned a better truth from a world I once called weak. Humans suffer. They break. They make mistakes. But they love so fiercely. And that love is the strongest legacy any of us can leave. If you are scared to feel anyway, if you are scared to care anyway, that is how the world changes. That is how we survive." She closed the recording and let it drift into the stars. The princess in the gardening, the final days of her life many years later. Viera spent her mornings in the garden behind her home. Children still came to visit. Adults brought stories. Aliens from distant systems made the journey to kneel by the roses she grew with her own hands. One child asked her, "What do you miss most about being a princess?" She looked at the sky and said, "Nothing," and then smiled at the doll resting by her chair. "I found something better than a throne." "What?" the child asked. She reached down and held the child's hand. "Family."